Thanks for joining today. We're going to be diving into breaking the silos, unifying learning content between technical content and learning content. And we're going to be looking at how structured content is the bridge to make that happen. Now, imagine, I'm going to ask you to put your thinking caps on and your imagination caps on. Imagine a world where if you're in L&D, learning and development, you could reach over and pull out just parts and pieces of that guidebook or that manual or the knowledge base articles that the technical documentation group has been authoring. And you could pull out those standard operating procedures or those best practices or those great overviews and introductions and concepts that have been written. Likewise, maybe you're sitting on the technical documentation side of the world and you'd love to reach over and pull out maybe some of the great descriptions, maybe some of the multimedia, some of the best practices and scenarios that would really bring some of your technical content to life. Well, that's what we're going to be covering today, is what that could actually look like from both sides, being able to reach over and grab that content, pull it in, and take advantage of it. And so when we take a look at what we're going to cover today, it's primarily around technical documentation, training content. What are some of the challenges that are preventing that from happening today? And an actual live demonstration, walking through grabbing technical content and pulling it into e-learning content that's being authored. Now, we're going to end with some takeaways that are actionable, things that you could go home and do today, regardless of the technology or tools that you're using. Now, I'd like to introduce myself. My name's Mike Buoy. I've been doing structured content management almost my entire career. And so working with really large organizations, primarily for me, the start was on the learning side. I was an instructional designer by education and by trade, building and training and putting content in there, all the while having a foot solidly in the technical documentation world. And it's amazing when you have a foot in each side, how similar the challenges are that each group faces. Yes, we're writing differently. Yes, we have different end goals for our content, but a lot of those challenges are the same. And so today I'm going to be talking through some of these different things. Now, I'm a senior solution consultant at Adobe for Adobe Experience Manager Guides. That's our component content management system, or CCMS platform, that allows you to move from managing files to managing the parts and pieces of files. So think Legos, being able to take something that would traditionally be an e-learning course and breaking it down to small Legos that can be snapped together. Likewise, your technical documentation being able to do the same. So with that, when we take a look at what is life like on either side, right? And I love the picture of the man in the hamster wheel because I've been that guy. Copy, paste, publish treadmill is what I call it, where content changes are coming in. You're having to duplicate things from one side, copy and paste it from another. Maybe on the L&D side, you're getting documentation kind of thrown over the wall at you. You're looking at it saying, okay, we're going to copy this. We're going to reorganize this. We're going to put activities. We've got to contextualize it for our audience. And for Tech Doc, if you're living in a CCMS world where you're no longer dealing with FrameMaker files and InDesign files and Word files for all the things that you're producing, and you've moved to that object-based, Lego-based approach, this is something that you guys have figured out, quite frankly, decades ago. L&D has those same challenges now. And so when we look at all the content, all the audiences, all the regions, all the variations, and people wanting more of it now, faster through lots of different channels, it really isn't scalable doing it the way that the traditional file-based method requires. And so with that duplication, it's that copy, paste, publish world. And so when we take a look at what's something that both from an L&D and a Tech Docs perspective, what's something that we can rally around that actually we're both automatically already pointing at. And I like calling that time to proficiency. And so if we look at the old saying of content doesn't equal skill, right? If we look at it from a continuum, there's the content, which over time you build knowledge. And as you're applying that, you get experience, and experience leads to skill. And eventually you become an expert. But that's a continuum. And when we look at technical documentation, it's peppered and used differently throughout that process. So if I'm brand new, I'm trying to learn it as I'm going through that content. And that's where that L&D, the learning and development side, comes through of providing not just the information, but also the guidance, the mentoring, the context that's really, really important when I need all that support. On the other end, you have the expert. Don't need the training. Don't slow me down. Just give me the specs, the steps, the how-tos. Let me reference the material I need so I can get through the task and get on to the next one after that. And so when we look at that continuum, both groups have content that's used in different ways by different people throughout that journey from a complete newbie to an expert. And when we look at the advent of AI and really where it's starting to come in, guys, Tech Doc and Learning have some of the most up-to-date, well-vetted, accurate, enriched content that is excellent, nutritional content that you could feed AI. And so when we look at that continuum, AI can now take those parts and pieces, all that great content that's coming out of your groups, and feed it in the right context, in the right time, in the right amount, in the flow of work. And so when I say you guys are working in parallel, but there's so much that can be pulled together, time to proficiency is one of those rallying calls that you guys can think about and start asking the questions of not what are we delivering, but how quickly can we get somebody to a level of proficiency? So where does this fit in? Well, we traditionally haven't worked a whole lot together. Now, there are exceptions. If you're one of those groups, high five. I'm proud of you. I'm excited for you. It's something that if you don't have the right tools and technology in place, it can be difficult. And it's not just the tools, though. Sometimes it's the culture. It's the KPIs that are driving our groups. We're using different tool sets. So if we're in the documentation world, we may be using DITA and XML tools. If we're in the learning space, we may be using Adobe Storyline and Rise and Captivate or whatever e-learning authoring tool that's out there in the world. If we're building instructor guides and student guides on the L&D side, we might be using FrameMaker and InDesign and Word, right? So those tools may overlap. But how we're writing and the types of deliverables we're giving are usually traditionally been something that's prevented us from trying to cross over. And it doesn't help that we're sitting in totally different organizations. L&D is usually in customer support or service or in HR. And then you've got technical documentation. A lot of times you're aligned with product or service. And so content doesn't have to live in an organization. Like I said before, if we look at it from a continuum point of view, that content is there to provide the right content in the right context at the right time in the right amount, right? All the just right amount, just right size, just for me, mass personalization. And then some of this is because we've been working in silos. Traditionally, we haven't worked together because we haven't had time to look at what one another is building or time to collaborate around it. And so reuse is really just something that would just take a lot of time and effort otherwise. And so this is where when we start looking at, well, how do we go from siloed, parallel, often highly duplicated content to a place where we can actually start sharing and working together? Structured content, in my view, is that bridge. And when we think about structured content, I've mentioned Lego several times. All right, structured content allows you to take that content, build it out, not as a Word document or an InDesign document or a FrameMaker document or an e-learning Captivate course, right? But instead a building block that we create one time. We're able to reuse it across documentation. We're able to reuse it across different learning experiences. Being able to take that same block, those assemblies, and be able to push them out to all the different formats, right? From PDF to HTML to SCORM. And for my Tech Doc people who may not have heard of SCORM before, SCORM is a learning standard. Kind of like DITA is a standard for technical documentation, SCORM is a standard for delivering and tracking learning experiences from a learning management system. If you've gone through a corporate LMS, you've launched and taken a course that was a SCORM course. So all these different parts and pieces, being able to deliver it through an LMS, including Adobe's own LMS, we call it ALM for Adobe Learning Manager. The whole idea here is flexibility. You've got the building blocks that you can link and assemble and push out through a lot of different systems. It also frees you up from a branding perspective. Some of you have multiple brands within your organization you need to support. And you're building your documentation and or your training material, and you need to have different logos, different fonts. You may call some people in some of your brands team members versus employees. It may be something as simple as that challenges being able to link and reuse content. And quite frankly, that's where structured content comes in the system like AEM Guides, because it's designed to allow you to manage the blocks of content, manage the variables like what you call an employee or a team member, so that you can swap that out really quickly in mass. The last part, future-proofing your content. Because you're not building a Word document or a storyline course, you're building content blocks. Those content blocks can now be used to feed AI. Those content blocks can be reorganized and re-snapped together for new context that you may not even be thinking of today, but 6 months from now will be the perfect assembly for an audience, a region, a product, or a service that you need to roll out. And so when we look at that leap from tech docs to learning, how do we do that without having to rewrite a lot of content? I like looking first at standard operating procedures. What are the best practices? What are the overview or introductory type topics that are typically written by technical documentation? Those are often a gold mine of good places to start. Would they be written exactly the same way that L&D would write them? Maybe not. But I bet if you looked at them side by side, they're probably not too far off. So oftentimes L&D is just taking that core content and putting that contextual wrapper around it so that they're providing the experience, that mentorship, that guidance of that content through something that's a new concept and helping them get through a newbie to that knowledgeable state so they can then take it out on the job and get experience and start building skill. And so when we look at things from the learning side, multimedia environments, being able to build quizzes and assessment questions and question pools, those types of things are really, really important for creating that great engaging learning experience. So guides now, and we're going to see this here in just a second, not only is this technical documentation, but also now opening up a new channel for authoring interactive learning content directly in the same environment, building those same building blocks as before. So with that, let's go in and do a live demo. And with the live demo, I'm going to be playing the role of instructional designer. So I'm going to use some of the content that my technical writer group sitting across the aisle over there, I'm going to grab some of their content and pull it into my course. But first, let's do a cooking show format. We're going to look at some existing content. We're going to go into the kitchen, aka guides, and we're going to grab some of that technical documentation content. We're going to pull that in. We're also going to build out some of the learning interactions. We'll just do some simple things like building out a question or question bank and configuring a quiz. Things that are standard inside of any of your e-learning content you may be developing today. So with that, I'm going to switch over. We'll start with an example here of e-learning content that was authored in guides. And this is the scenario. It's the organization called Canary Corp. And this is their onboarding course for somebody who is a customer service employee. And so if you look along the side, the table of contents for the course, who we are, a quick quiz and knowledge check for that. Let's go in and just do that quick quiz. This is just a couple questions. All right, where are our headquarters? Where are our remote offices? Let's submit. Okay, and we got our feedback. We passed it. Great. Should have pointed it out when I was going through the quiz. Until I passed it, the rest of the course is locked out. So you can build in those types of interactions and experiences inside of a guides authored course. Now let's jump forward. Okay, welcome to your first day. First day anywhere, you get a laptop. You have to set it up and configure it, right? You're going to have to log in. Here's a carousel interaction that was built in guides, walking somebody through this activity of walking through and setting up their account. And of course, the summary here of what you've learned and key takeaways. Now, that looks a little thin. And in our scenario, somebody said, hey, we need more detail in the course because people are looking at this and they're getting a little lost. They need more help. They want to have more nuts and bolts information about how to actually log in, where to go, URLs, all the things. Can you get that to them? Oh, and by the way, please include some best practices and just an overview of how we do communication with technology and tools in our organization. Guess what? TechDoc has already written some of that, right? So I'm going to touch on some other content interactions that we'll see. Accordions are one. I love these. Great way to take a bunch of content and collapse it down and make it interactive, and people can move through that really easily. And of course, other quizzes. We're not going to spend a bunch of time right now because I want to focus on, okay, I need to beef up my learning course. Let me look and see what TechDoc has already built. So I'm going to go to the knowledge base for Canary Corp for the customer support guidebook, right? This is my online guide to all the information that I need to know to do my job. So this is all part of the knowledge base here. But we want to grab parts and pieces of this and put it into those first few days of an employee's life in this onboarding course. So here's log into your corporate account, essential tools for communication. Yep. Teams, Outlook, Slack, those are all part of the environment. Okay, great. I know there's some good stuff that already exists. And it's not just even HTML knowledge-based content. It's also existing in PDFs. So our TechDoc group, because they were authoring AEM guides, they authored the content one time. They pushed it out to a knowledge base. They took that same content and published it out to a PDF. In this case, we'll take a look at our guidebook. Let's see, using internal tools to collaborate. That looks like some really good best practice information. I want to include that in my course as well. So let's put on my instructional designer hat. Let's go jump over into guides and see our course. So I've already logged in the guides, and just a quick orientation. Along the side, I have my different panes or panels that allow me to do different types of functionality. Right now, let's load this up as a course manager. We can see my course. We can see the structure of my course. And as I expand out this table of contents, this matches what we saw when we originally looked at e-learning course. Over here, I've got my course open, and here's my preview. Core values, knowledge check. Oh, all right, there's my knowledge check. That's actually the first thing I want to do. So let's do some content authoring real quickly first. So I'm going to take this topic. Let's open it up. And just like you would with your technical documentation, a topic inside of guides, we have topics that are informational topics as well as ones that are quiz topics. This is a quiz type topic. And in here, I want to add in a new question. Let's add in a true-false question. And let's see, we're going to mark this let's see. Oh, you know what? I need to check this out. Let me cancel that. All right. It's checked out, so I can work on it now. Let me update my question stem. And we will say all employees have the option to work from home. And we'll say true. All right. I can come up here and I can look at my configurations for this question. And so that's one of the things, because we're dealing with objects as a content author, as an instructional designer. I'm going to write my question. I'm not picking the fonts and the colors here. I'm going to pick, okay, is it true? Is it false? Okay, I'm going to mark that as false. Are there different points? So I want to have different feedback for that question. I have all these different options that are available to me at that question or that interaction level. Now, I can also, at the actual quiz level, I also have properties that are the quiz level properties. So is this a practice quiz that's graded or not? And this comes into play when you're delivering this content through a learning management system, because the score and that information is going to roll up and be communicated back. So I could have this just be a practice question, check your knowledge. There are a lot of different options that are available here, such as how many attempts do they get? Is it a timed one, right? So I can have it be as simple as a practice-only quiz that isn't going to impact my grade or score, all the way up to this is a timed final assessment. So the different tools and different configurations that as an instructional designer or course developer, you'd be interested in. All right, so I've made my changes there. That's great. We'll save that. And of course, one of the key parts of a component content management system is very robust versioning. And so added a true false question to the new version. So that's my versioning at that topic level. So again, if we think about our table of contents, that quiz right there is one block, one topic, and that could be linked and reused in multiple places. Okay, what else can we do? Let's take a look at our activity here. Let's see, we'll open that up, and it's read only. Let me check it out so I can edit it. And so here's an example of a carousel. And so this carousel has 3 different parts and pieces. And if I wanted to swap out or add or change out an image, I could. In fact, I can create different collections of different media. And perhaps I want to add a video here. Actually, let's see. I don't want to drop it right there. I want to give it its own paragraph there. I'm going to drag and drop a video. So here's a great maybe overview video of how to log in. So multimedia fully supported. Again, being able to insert other types of interactions. You saw the accordion, you saw the carousel in action, you saw the multimedia. You can set up hotspots as well with clickable events. And if you need to incorporate other content that may be beyond what you can author in guides, you have the option of having an iframe and placing content inside of that. So from an authoring perspective, great flexibility, being able to author the content. It is now a topic that's been updated with my video here. Everything's looking good. I'm going to save this. Again, I can version it. Added video and save. And so now the system's keeping track of all those individual changes that are happening per version. So I have all those version snapshots as I'm developing content. Okay, I'm going to go back to the course manager view, which gives me that table of contents type view of my course. All the while, I can look and see what I've built out here from an authoring perspective. There are my new questions I've updated. There's my video that I dropped in, my accordion and different carousel examples. So at this point, I'm going to shift gears because we talked a lot about breaking down silos, and everything you've seen me do so far has been an instructional designer, learning content, development type activity. This is where I'm not going to author content now. I'm going to rely on the content that somebody else built. And so in that case, I'm going to go to my repository. And so this is just going to give me another view. So as opposed to looking at just the course I'm building, I can see across all the folders and subfolders that I have access and permission to see. And I know that I'm looking for a couple different things specifically for my course. And I'm going to put this over in a different mode for my course, more of a TOC mode, so I can just start dropping in the different topics that have already been built. So I'm going to search for, let's see, single sign-on, so SSO. So I'm going to search my repository. Now, this is my demo environment, really small repository. There isn't a whole lot of content. When you have more and more content, the filtering becomes really important. Being able to do things like, okay, I want to do advanced filtering based on metadata tags or other attributes around that content. So it may be that I get 100 objects or topics that come back, and as I apply additional filters to it, it narrows it down to a nice little number that I can look at and decide what's going to go into my content. So for my course, inside of my learning group, this is my section here on getting started for technology. There's your login to your corporate account. I'm just going to drag and drop that over here. And let's see, I also want to do something with tools. Oh, essential tools for, well, let me just double click and look at it. Yep, that's the one I want. So essential tools for communication. I'm going to drag and drop that over here. And then the last one, let's look for collaboration. And using tools to collaborate internally. Yep, that's it. That's the one I want. Okay. So I'm going to just drag and drop that in. And so what I'm doing as I'm building this out, I'm taking those existing topics. Somebody else authored them in the tech group, right? Tech Doc wrote them. They're awesome. I want to use them as is. I'm dropping them in. And as I take a look, let me come over to my map here. I go to my my view. Let's see. I'm going to save my changes, and I want to remember a lot of what I do with L&D is I'm giving things the right context. So welcome to my first day. That's going to be my contextual wrapper introducing all this. Then I want somebody to log in. So I'm just going to quickly reorder all this using tools for essential communication. We're going to put that best practice after the activity of trying to log in. So that looks like what I want things to be here. That's looking good. Let's see. I can also access this from a different point of view. Actually, I'm going to redo that from over here. We're going to reorder this. And let's see, essential tools for communication. And where's my welcome? And log in. There we go. Okay. And let's refresh let's take this and put it over in a preview. We'll force a preview, take a quick look, make sure this is in the order that we want it to be in. Using tools to collaborate. Oh, it's looking like I need to update and refresh this one more time. I'm just going to refresh my browser window, make sure that, there we go. Welcome to my first day. Okay, everything is all good now. Let me go to my preview. Have all this ready to go. Fantastic. First day, I have my topics here. And if I were to open up, let's say log into your account, this topic, I can see at a glance, reference-wise, it has been used in the user guide as well as the onboarding course that we're using right now. So one topic used in two different places. Fantastic. Let me save. Close this out. Save version. And for this version, added tech doc content. And save. Great. Made an assembly. Now let's push it out. Last part we're going to do here, I'm going to move from my kind of authoring mode to my output generation mode. And so in this mode, I can pick different outputs, PDFs, for example, student guides, instructor guides. The one that I'm going to focus in on is the employee e-learning output. I've got a bunch of different configurations that can be set up administratively, including things like, hey, if I have conditions of some parts and pieces need to go to different audiences, I can define it here, as well as the last publishing stage. What happens once I generate this out? Is this going to automatically get uploaded to an LMS? It could go to SCORM Cloud. It could go to Adobe Learning Manager. So you can have these different configurations so that as things are published out, they end up going to the right places. Now, one of the sessions, or the session that's following mine by Alan, he'll be talking about Adobe Learning Manager specifically and how you can impact the day-to-day life and how people are actually accessing content in the flow of work. He'll be talking about how you go from authoring it in guides to actually impacting the world of people who are accessing your content. Okay, and so last part here, we're just pulling this open, taking a quick look, and now we can see at a glance, we now have our welcome, we now have our how to log in, that procedure, some best practices, there's our activity with our video, and then we have also got our essential tools for communication. So all these are ways to generate out content. Now, as we wrap up here, just some quick thoughts and a call to action for you. At the end of the day, structured content is that bridge. And here's the deal. If you guys have conversations, if you're in Tech Doc, go have a conversation with somebody in training and development who's developing something in the same subject area as you. You would be amazed how close and how consistent that content likely is. And so if you're an L&D, go talk to somebody in your tech doc group. You don't have to use the tools and technology to have the conversation. You don't have to have the tools and technology to actually sit down maybe over lunch one day and say, well, show me how you're writing your overviews. How are we doing this? You may be amazed that they're not identical, but they're close enough that you guys could probably collaborate and build a sample project just to see how feasible it is within your organization. And again, it's that whole idea, author content one time and be able to push it out to all the different formats, creating different assemblies and being able to tag it so that you can support different audiences for different regions without doing a whole lot of additional work. So that picture of that hamster wheel, that's the part where I want to get you guys off the hamster wheel so that you're not doing the copy, paste, publish routine, that you're able to work smart, take content from a single source and create multiple experiences from it. Now, my contact information's on the screen here. I love talking about this stuff. If you have questions or want to connect, please reach out through LinkedIn. I would love to connect with you. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day.